I invite you to take your Bibles and go with me to Zechariah chapter 12 and verse number 6. Zechariah chapter 12 and verse number 6. And again, I want to talk about the resurgence of the Israeli military in Bible prophecy. And the text that I want to use is out of Zechariah chapter 12 and verse number 6. And it says this. It says, in that day will I make the governors of Judah like an hearth, or a hot oven, or a hot stove, of fire among the wood. The wood would be Israel's enemies. They would be the fire, their enemies would be the wood. And like a torch of fire in a sheath. And they shall devour all the people round about, on the right hand and on the left. And Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, even Jerusalem. Now, folks, we have seen that prophecy fulfilled. The governors, or the people of Judah, the Jewish people, will be like an hearth and a hot oven. And their enemies would be the fire. Israel would be a torch in a sheath. They will devour their enemies that surround them. Israel is surrounded by 22 Arab dictatorships, and not one of them acknowledge her right to exist. So they will be surrounded by their enemies, but they will devour their enemies on the right hand and on the left hand. And once they do that, they would once again inhabit the city of Jerusalem, where they rightfully belong. And Jerusalem rightly belongs in the hand and the possession of the Jewish people. Folks, the Arab world found out the hard way during the 4 major Israeli wars. During the 4 major Israeli war, the Arab world felt the formidable might of the Israeli military on 4 different occasions. Israel was victorious during those 4 wars, and the Arab world embarrassed, as the Arab world promised to destroy the Jews and the state of Israel. That never happened. The Bible prophesied the resurgence of the Israeli military. Now, the word resurgence means the Jewish people were and are, in the present tense, a formidable military force. Not only was that the case in Bible times, but folks, even in the present, even now, in Bible times, as long as the Jewish people operated in the very center of God's will, they would be victorious over their enemies, as God promised in Exodus chapter 14, verse 14. The Lord thy God shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. And that was the case when Joshua led a campaign in Canaan, when he displaces the Canaanite conglomeration of nations in the land at that time. King David conquers Jerusalem from the Jebusites, another Canaanite faction, and makes Jerusalem his capital. Jerusalem has been the capital for over 3,000 years of the Jewish people. We think of Judges chapter 4. Deborah and Barak defeat the Canaanite forces, Sisera and the Canaanite forces, at the base of Mount Tabor. I was just at Mount Tabor, which is in the lower Galilee, in the north of Israel. In Judges chapter 7, Gideon and only 300 men defeat a combined Amalekite and Midianite army combined, folks, with just over, 300 Jews. With just 300 Jews. They defeat a combined massive military threat of Midianite and Amalekite forces. The military power of the Israelites was consolidated under the reigns of King David and his son, King Solomon. The Jews were a force to be reckoned with in biblical times, and their enemies knew this. And even in modern times, the enemies of the Jews know very well that Israel is indeed a force to be reckoned with. I heard one Arab guy call the state of Israel the tiny superpower of the Middle East. And boy, is he right. As a matter of fact, in Ezekiel chapter 37 and in verse number 10, the Jewish prophet prophesied that when the Jews come back in the land in the last days, they would be a force to be reckoned with. As a matter of fact, Ezekiel 37:10 says this, "So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they lived, and stood upon their feet, an exceeding great army." Now that could refer to either a military force or the Jewish people as a whole in general. But they would indeed stand upon their feet, an exceeding great army. As I said already, as I read this, the Israeli necktie here, you can see in Hebrew, the word army in Hebrew is Sava. The army in defense of the state of Israel. So in Hebrew you would say Sava Hagana La Israel. Because of this army, there is a saying, we will defend the state of Israel. As a matter of fact, come to Israel with us next year in the spring. I will take you to the Dead Sea area. We will take a cable car ride to the very top of the summit of Masada. Masada was a Jewish stronghold against the Roman army in 73 AD. Masada, unfortunately, fell to the Romans. But before the Jews could even be captured by the Romans, according to the Jewish historian Josephus Flavius, roughly about 930 Jews chose suicide rather than captured and prisoners of the Romans. They wanted to die as freemen. As a matter of fact, when you go to the Masada Museum, you can see the 10 pieces of ostraca, 10 pieces of pottery with the names of the men that archaeologists discovered, with the names of the men that would draw lots, cast lots to see who would kill who. One of the names on that ostraca was Eliezer ben Yair. He was the one who led that group up there at Masada, and he was the one who said, listen, we can either die as free people, free Jews. No man should be the slave of another man, he said. Or fight, have the Romans conquer us, they'll kill us men, rape our women, put our children into slavery. And so they all agreed, cast those lots. You can still see those 10 pieces of ostraca, pieces of pottery, 10 of them in separate cases, with the names of the men from 2,000 years ago. But when an Israeli soldier is inducted into the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, they have a ceremony up on the top of Masada, where he pledges to the state of Israel his loyalty to defend the state of Israel. And there is a banner up there at Masada which reads in Hebrew, Masada Shenit Lo Tifol. Masada will never fall again. It fell to the Romans 2,000 years ago. It's never going to fall again. In other words, Israel will never fall again. But the Jewish prophet Zechariah was more specific. He prophesied that God would make the people of Judah, the Jews, the fire among the wood. The fire in the sheaf. And folks, we saw that 100% completely fulfilled. May 14th, 1948, Israel's first prime minister, David Ben-Gurion, after his announcement to the world, the rebirth and creation of the state of Israel, as foretold by the Jewish prophets, he said, once the British backed out, Israel was attacked by 5 Arab armies. Egypt came from the south, Syria from the northeast. The Jordanians came over what was then called Transjordan, which is east of the Jordan River. Lebanon came from the northwest. Iraq came from the far north in the area of the Euphrates River. 5 Arab armies came upon the infant, newborn state of Israel, with barely an army, with barely a military. The Israeli forces consisted at most of 30,000 ragtag underground Jewish fighters coming up against the might of almost over 500,000 Arab troops combined among those 5 Arab nations. And folks, against unbeatable odds, against all odds, Israel won the war of independence. Shortly after the War of Independence of 1948, the IDF was formed. The Israeli Defense Force was formed to protect the state of Israel. The Arabs, it's amazing, the Arabs of Transjordan were led by a British officer. You heard me, Brother Keith Cashton. I know you live over there in Britain, but these were the facts right here. The Arabs of Transjordan were led by a British officer named John Glubb. The British gladly supplied arms openly to the Arabs in their war and in their fight against Israel, while Israel had to smuggle weapons purchased in Czechoslovakia. The Jews were standing alone. Even America didn't come to their aid. America did not come to their defense. Why? Well, because of that dirty little 3-letter word, OIL, oil. After the 1948 War of Independence, the only area that the Jews were unable to conquer was the old city of Jerusalem. Even though Israel won the War of Independence in 48, they were not able to conquer the holy city of Jerusalem. I know we have Justin Jenny Miller, who just came into the room with us. Stephen Mitch Smith is with us. Good to see you guys. Jennifer Parton Webb is with us. Good to see her. Connor Chancery is in the room with us. Thank you. Stephen Sykes, good friend of mine, pastor out there in New Mexico. Good to see him this morning. God bless you too, brother. Susan Hurley is with us. And my dear friend Dave Flory, I was just over his house last night, is with us. Good to have all of you in the room. Usually my chime goes off when someone comes into the room, but for some reason it's not going off. Well, go figure. All right, we continue. Even though Israel won the War of Independence against all odds, with an army of 30,000 people against a massive Arab military might, Israel won that war. You can say coincidence. You can say a fluke. You can say coincidence. I'll say God incidence. Okay, that's Zechariah 12:6, folks. Even though they won the War of Independence, Jerusalem was not in their hands of the Jews. It was still under Jordanian occupation. The Jordanians had occupation over all of the holy Jewish and Christian sites. And Jews were banned from going to any of their holy sites. And I believe Christians as well. Until the 1967 Six-Day War broke out. After the 48 War, there was the 1956 Suez Canal War. Israel won that war when they were attacked by 3 Arab nations. Then the 1967 Six-Day War broke out. And folks, it only took Israel 6 days to mop the floor up with the 3 invading Arab nations. In June of 1967, the president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, said this, and I quote, "We shall not enter Palestine with its soil covered in sand. We shall enter it with its soil saturated in blood." In other words, we're going into the land of Israel and we will saturate the sand with the blood of the Jews, is what he's saying. Then a few months later, he said this, and I quote, "The immediate aim, perfection of Arab military might." Then he said, "The national aim, the eradication of Israel." Before he became president of Syria, Defense Minister Hafez Assad, who was the father of now current President Bashar al-Assad, who is allowing his people to die by the thousands as I speak right now over there in Syria. Defense Minister Hafez Assad said this, and I quote, "The Syrian army, with its finger on the trigger, is united. And I, as a military man, believe that the time has come to enter into a battle of annihilation." End quote. Hafez Assad, who later became Syria's president, says, "We stand with the Arab world in the annihilation of the state of Israel." The president of Egypt said again, and I quote, "We will not accept any coexistence with Israel." End quote. The president of Iraq, Abdul Rahman Aref, said this, and I quote, "Our goal is clear: to wipe Israel off the map." End quote. Iran's former president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, well, he should be called Mahmoud Ahmadinejad job, always said during his, 8 years as president of Iran, every single day he said, "We will wipe Israel off the face of the map." The 5 combined Arab nations consisted of 465,000 troops, 2,800 tanks, 800 aircraft. And Israel, again, barely had a military. But you know something? What I love about the Israeli Defense Force is that they'll hit you when you know you're about to hit them. And they'll go right into your backyard and they will do exactly that. Israel did not even wait for an attack. Even though those Arab nations were mobilizing, they did not even wait for an attack. Instead, Israel launched a preemptive strike on orders of then Israeli Prime Minister Levi Eshkol. This was on June the 5th, 1967. And folks, when the dust settled and the smoke cleared, in less than 2 hours, Israel obliterated, let me use that word again, obliterated the Egyptian Air Force. They couldn't even get a plane off the ground by destroying over 300 Egyptian fighter jets. A few hours later, Israel destroyed all of the Jordanian fighter aircraft that were on the ground and destroyed half of Syria's fighter jets on the ground. Israel crippled them. I mean, folks, crippled them. After 6 days of fighting, the Israeli Defense Forces captured the Sinai and the Gaza Strip in the south. They captured Judea and Samaria, the so-called West Bank, as you hear it being called today. And Israel captured the Golan Heights, which today is a buffer zone between Syria and Israel, under control of Israel. It's under Israeli sovereignty. I take my tour groups to the Golan Heights all the time. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. The remains of ancient synagogues are there, which shows that the Jews were there way before these Arabs came on the scene. But the prize that came out of the 6-day war is that after 1,897 years, after nearly 2,000 years, the Jews captured the holy city of Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. After taking the old city of Jerusalem, want to know what happened? After taking Jerusalem and the holy Temple Mount, where the first and second Jewish temples once stood, the very Temple Mount where Jesus himself preached when that second temple was up and standing. Once the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, captured Jerusalem and the Temple Mount from the Jordanians, the IDF, the Israeli troops, rushed to the Western Wall to pray. When the Israeli troops got to the wall, their legs became like spaghetti. Many of them dropped their weapons, fell to their knees. Tears were streaming down the eyes of the Israeli troops. Many of them started shouting out in Hebrew, after 2,000 years, we're back in Jerusalem. We're back at the wall. Many of them were davening. You know, when you look at Jews, and I'll take you to the Western Wall, you come to Israel with us next year. They were davening. Davening is not what these kids are doing, this, whatever that is. They were praying back and forth, eyes closed. They had the talit, the prayer shawls on them. And they were praying, Lashana Haba'ah Be'Yerushalayim. Next year in Jerusalem became this year. They were crying. They were praying. Because, folks, for 2,000 years, they were out of Jerusalem. And even though they won the War of Independence in 1948, Jerusalem was not in their control. And while the Jordanians had Jerusalem under occupation, for 18 years, the Jordanians would not allow the Jews to pray at the Western Wall, or known in Hebrew as the Kotel, or what Christians call the Wailing Wall. For 18 years, they were not allowed to pray at the wall between 1948 and the 6-day War of 1967. And then the Jews went up on the Temple Mount, went right in front of the Islamic shrine of the Dome of the Rock that still sits there today, by the way. They placed the Israeli flag on the Temple Mount. While Jews were up on the Temple Mount, placing the Israeli flag right in front of the Dome of the Rock, right in front of that Islamic shrine, Jews below were bawling, crying, and praying right there at the Western Wall. Rabbi Shlomo Goren, with a Torah, a mini Torah under his arm, the 5 books of Moses, and then took a shofar. He blew the shofar at the Kotel, the Western Wall, and he proclaimed, and I quote, "We have taken the city of God. We are entering the Messianic Era for the Jewish people," end quote. He knew from some of the prophecies in the Hebrew scriptures that when the Jews are back in their capital city of Jerusalem, the Messiah will return. The Messiah will come, even though they missed him 2,000 years ago. Once again, folks, the tiny nation of Israel had prevailed against unbeatable odds. The 6-Day War proved to be one of the most miraculous wars in history. Some time ago, a few weeks back, I talked about the miracle of the 6-Day War. You need to order that on CD from us. The miracle of the 6-Day War, in which I go through some of those miracles and interviews from Israeli soldiers and even Arabs that fought against the Jews of what happened on behalf of the Jews during the 6-Day War. One of the most miraculous wars in history. But do you think the Israeli victory in 48, the Israeli victory in 56, and the Israeli victory in the 6-Day 67 War would stop the Arab world? No. Because they attacked again. This time in 1973. And this war was called the Yom Kippur War because Israel was attacked on the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. An attack was launched by Egypt and Syria. They attacked on October 6, 1973. Yom Kippur, the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. And Israel, once again, was victorious, even though they were attacked off guard. No warning, no nothing. And it was a slobber knocker at first. Egypt and Syria was mopping up the floor with Israel. But Israel regrouped, defeated Syria, and defeated Egypt. It was so bad. The defeat by Israel over Syria and Egypt was so embarrassing that Egyptian President Anwar Sadat said, we can't defeat these Jews no matter what we throw at them. Look at all these past wars, and for some reason they keep beating us. Why? Well, if you can't beat them, you might as well join them. And Anwar Sadat was the first Arab president to make peace with Israel. Even went to Jerusalem to the Israeli Knesset and spoke at the Israeli parliament. And you can remember, it was Anwar Sadat, then is U.S. President Jimmy Carter, don't get me started, and then Prime Minister Menachem Begin. All of them was on the front of the White House lawn, all three of them with their hands all rolled up together, doing this. The moment Anwar Sadat went back to Egypt, he was sitting down in the presidential box during a parade in Egypt, a military parade in Egypt. His troops were walking by as he's sitting there. All of a sudden, one group of soldiers stopped, turned, cocked their Kalashnikov rifles, opened fire on their president, and killed Anwar Sadat. Why? Because Anwar Sadat committed the unpardonable sin in the Arab world. You don't make peace with the Jews. You don't make peace with Israel. However, according to Bible prophecy, the Arab world will unite to attack Israel once again. And by the grace of God, Israel will be victorious once again. But this time, God himself will intervene. And he will crush these Arab forces. And folks, when you look at Psalm 83, folks, Psalm 83, we can identify those Arab nations in Psalm 83 today. We can clear, I think I dropped my tie here. We can identify Psalm 83 and those nations, those Arab nations that will attack the state of Israel. If you look at verse number 1, keep not thou silence, O God, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult. And they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. Psalm 83:4 is the goal of the Arab world even today. I read Psalm 83 verse 4. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. That was the goal of the Arab world during the 1948 War of Independence, the 1956 Suez Canal War, the 1967 Six-Day War, and the 1973 Yom Kippur War, and it is still the goal of the Arab world today, the annihilation of the state of Israel. And even though after those 4 major wars, there have been some skirmishes between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, in South Lebanon in the north, that was in 2006. There have been skirmishes with Hamas in the Gaza Strip. No matter what they throw at the Jews, they ain't going anywhere. Let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Iran's president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, in 2008, at Tehran Square, speaking to 4,000 Islamic terrorists. This is what he said. We as Muslims must rise up and wipe Israel off the face of the earth, that their name may be forgotten forever. Folks, that's almost verbatim of Psalm 83 and verse number 4. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Verse 5. They have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. Then he mentions those Arab nations in verse number 6. The tabernacles of Edom, that's South Jordan. The Ishmaelites, that would be today's Saudi Arabia. Moab, that would be Central Jordan. The Hagarenes, that would be Egypt. Remember, Hagar was an Egyptian. The Hagarenes, that would be Egypt. Verse 7, Gamal, that's Lebanon. Ammon, that's northern Jordan. Amalek, which we believe today to be the people that call themselves the Palestinians. Because Amalek was the grandson of Esau, Genesis 36 and verse number 12. Esau is the father of the Edomites, Genesis 36 verses 1, 8, and 9. Amalek is grandson. And I really don't have a whole lot of time to develop that, folks, but we have a message called Esau and Judgment on the Palestinians, in which I trace the Edomite family tree from Esau all the way up to the people today who call themselves the Palestinians, who want nothing more than the annihilation of the state of Israel and to take their land. Man, I wish I can go through all that right now, but I just simply don't have the time. And then he says in verse 7, Tyre, that's southern Lebanon. That's where Hezbollah is located today. Verse 8, Ashur, that is today what we would call Mosul, modern day Iraq. Mosul back in biblical times was Assyria. Today it's modern day Mosul, Iraq. That's where all that fighting is going on between Iraqi forces and ISIS. They're all over there right now. Then he says, Assur also is joined with them. They have helped the children of Lot. Who were the children of Lot? Wasn't that Abraham's nephew, Lot? Who were the children of Lot? Genesis 19, 37 and 38. After God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot had an incestuous relationship with his 2 daughters. 2 illegitimate sons were born. Ben-Ami, Ammon, and Moab. Moab is central Jordan. Ammon is northern Jordan. Esau and the Edomites would be southern Jordan. I take my tour groups over there to Petra all the time. Petra is in southern Jordan. That's where Esau and the Edomites once dwelt. So we have just identified all the Arab nations that will come up against Israel, according to Bible prophecy, in the future. But when you continue to read on, verses 13 through 18, God says, I am going to, and I'm paraphrasing, God says, I am going to crush them with the destruction of these Arab nations in Psalm 83 will probably prompt the Ezekiel 38-39 Gog-Magog invasion, when Russia will lead an Arab coalition of nations against Israel. And when that's all said and done, they will be destroyed upon the mountains of Israel. And folks, Ezekiel 38-39 lays all of that out. You look at Ezekiel 38:1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog in the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against them, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, I am against thee. I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Who is Gog? Well, Gog is the personality. Gog is a personality who comes out of Magog. Who was Magog? Genesis 10 verses 1 through 3. Magog was the son of Japheth, the son of Noah. When Magog broke away from his brothers, he dwelt and settled north of the Caspian and Black Sea today. Geography, folks, helps us to understand where these nations are today. What nation today is north of the Caspian and Black Sea? Get a map out. Find the Caspian Sea or the Black Sea. You're going to find Russia is north of the Caspian and Black Sea. Then he says in verse 2, Meshech, Tubal, and verse 6 of Ezekiel 38, Gomer, Togarmah. Well, what nation is south of the Caspian and Black Sea? What nation in biblical times consisted of Japheth's other boys? Meshech, Tubal, Gomer, and Togarmah. Those four boys settled south of the Caspian and Black Sea. That is today the Islamic State of Turkey. Turkey today has a radical Islamic president, Tayyip Erdogan. He is a radical Islamic president who wants to see an Islamic caliphate, a global Islamic caliphate. Find yourself an ancient Turkish map. Look it up online in Google, ancient Turkish map, and you will see that Turkey consisted of those four boys of Japheth: Meshech, Tubal, Gomer, and Togarmah. Now, people like Jack Van Impe, they take this stuff way out of context and try to say Gomer today is modern day Germany. Meshech today is Moscow. Meshech, Tubal is Tobolsk. They take it way out of context. Turkey. And I was just in Turkey, folks. I mean, we stopped over there for a stop off, but I was looking at all these ancient Turkish maps and everything, and I saw Meshech, Tubal, Gomer, Togarmah are areas that are today the Islamic State of Turkey. Russia, Turkey. Then when you get to Ezekiel 38:5, Persia. In 1936, Persia changed their name to Iran. So Iran will join Russia and Turkey. Iran wants to see Israel badly wiped off the face of the map. I told you, Iran has an Israeli doomsday clock in which its hands are right on the number 12, saying that Israel's demise could happen at any moment. They have an Israel doomsday clock. They just recently, in Iran, used a Star of David as target practice for their missiles. It's crazy, folks. But yet, in Ezekiel 38:5, Persia in 1936 changed their name to Iran. Then Ethiopia. Well, Ethiopia, that's Genesis 10:6. Ethiopia, in biblical times known as Cush. Ethiopia today consists of Ethiopia, Sudan, and Somalia. All Arab nations under Islamic Sharia law that have no diplomatic ties with Israel whatsoever. And then Libya. Again, I point you to Genesis 10:6. Libya, known in biblical times as Put. P-H-U-T or P-U-T, whichever way you spell it. Put is modern day Libya. So we have Russia, Turkey, Iran, Ethiopia, Sudan, Somalia, and Turkey. And Libya will join Russia in an attack upon the state of Israel. But according to Ezekiel chapter 39 and verse number 4, God says, I'm going to kill you all when you come up against my people. God says in Ezekiel 39:4, thou shalt fall upon the mountains of Israel, thou and all thy bands, and the people that is with thee. I will give thee unto the ravenous birds of every sort, and to the beasts of the fields to be devoured. Thou shalt fall upon the open fields, for I have spoken it, saith the Lord. Why was Israel victorious in all of her major wars? Because Psalm 121 and verse 4 says this, behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Bible says God has his eyes upon the land of Israel all the time. We also see in Isaiah chapter 54 and verse number 17 where it says, no weapon formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. We also see in Joel chapter 3 and verse number 2, I will gather all nations and will bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and have parted my land. Where is the valley of Jehoshaphat today? It's not the Jezreel Valley in the north of Israel, which is Armageddon. The valley of Jehoshaphat is in Jerusalem. It's known in the New Testament, especially in the Gospel of John, as the Kidron Valley. The Kidron Valley separates the Temple Mount from the west to the Mount of Olives to the east. Jesus and his disciples frequently cross the Kidron Valley all the time. I take my tour groups down into the Kidron Valley. It's amazing. All the nations will one day gather there in the valley of Jehoshaphat in an attempt to kill the Jews and take Jerusalem. God says that anybody who tries to part the land of the city of Jerusalem and who have scattered my people, God says, I will judge them for that. Folks, Israel's wars in the past were nothing short of just a miracle. Miraculous victories. The Arab world today is still scratching their heads, but they're still seething over their embarrassing loss to the Jews. Bible prophecy tells us the Arab world will unite once again in the future in a final attempt to eradicate the Jews. This time, supernaturally, God will intervene. And folks, Bible prophecy will be fulfilled. Man alive. This could preach for hours. Folks, that's the reason why I want to offer on today's show this Israeli Defense Force necktie. This is the icon of the emblem of the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF. And again, it says in Hebrew, I want to see if you can see that closely, in Hebrew, Sava Hagana La Israel, Army of the Defense of Israel. We have this in navy blue, and we have it in military green. And again, that's why I wanted to wear my Israeli Defense Forces shirt on. You can see as it says there in Hebrew, read them right to left. Sava Hagana La Israel, Defense, Army Defense of Israel. I'd love for you to have that necktie. And it's available for $15 plus $3 shipping and handling. Go to my website, todayinbibleprophecy.org. Scroll down to the bottom of the page. Hit the PayPal button. Type in the box. Just put IDF necktie. I, Israel, D, Defense, F, Force. IDF necktie. The price is $15 plus put $3 shipping and handling in the shipping and handling box. And once we receive your order, we will send it to you. If you order that necktie, we will throw in a CD of this audio message. The resurgence of the Israeli military in Bible prophecy. If you'd like me to come to your church and preach these truths on a PowerPoint, you'll get to see everything on a PowerPoint. I would love to come to your church.
as long as you are in doctrinal agreement with what we believe here in Today in Bible Prophecy Ministries as an independent fundamental Baptist ministry, then we would love to come to your church and preach on Bible prophecy. So you can contact me here on Facebook Messenger or send me an email, august.todayinbibleprophecy@gmail.com. If you'd love to come to Israel with us next year, I want to take you to these places in Israel, folks, so you can see these things with your own eyes, to see where partial prophecy was fulfilled in the past and where prophecy will be fulfilled in the future. Come with me to Israel in the spring of March next year. We'll take about 15, maybe 20 people tops, small group, that's it. And I want to show you these things for yourself. You can contact me concerning that. If our ministry has been a blessing to you and you'd like to help support our ministry, you can do that by $20 a month. You do that at $20 a month, we want to send a CD out to you every month concerning what's going on in the world in light of biblical prophecy. And I'd like to send you a CD once a month. And maybe throw a few other things there in between as well, as our way of saying thank you. So if you can help support us at $20 a month, go to the PayPal button, hit that button, just put $20 a month support, and that would be greatly appreciated. Others support us periodically, and others a one-time gift. But if we've been a blessing to you folks, if you enjoy our Bible prophecy teaching, then please help support us. And so we appreciate that and thank you in advance. Follow me on the social networks here on Facebook, all my breaking news articles on Twitter, and look at all of my videos on YouTube. And folks, I hope and pray that the Lord blesses your day today. The weekend is here. Hope you enjoy it. 4th of July is coming up. You know, we're going to honor just a little over 200 years of American history. America just a little over 200 years old. But Israel, 4,000 years old. Man. So folks, enjoy the weekend. Keep it safe. Share the gospel with someone today. Put a gospel tract in someone's hands. Invite someone to come to your church this upcoming Lord's Day. And remember, keep looking up. Jesus is coming soon. And Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.